Sometimes in life, we just need a good book to make us cry more than once. Hey guys, what's up? It's Ashley. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the start of a new reading vlog. This is part 2 of my rereading 5-star reads series, and obviously if you have watched the first few minutes of this vlog, you will know that I started my reread of Archer's Voice. This was my plan for my July reread, and I've kind of been putting it off, and then randomly at like 1 a.m. last night, and I'm like, you know what? It's time. I'm feeling it. I need a heartfelt, good romance that's gonna just really pull at me. So I did make a good dent in this last night. I got to page 55. If you have not read this book and you've been like living under a rock or something, this is a small town romance, and it is between our main character Bree and Archer. And Archer was involved in a horrific accident when he was 7 years old, and it damaged his voice box in the process. Basically led him to having this horrible childhood. No one talks to him as an adult. He's basically a hermit that lives alone. And Bree is new to town. She's running from something in her past. She meets Archer on like her first or second day there. She drops her bag of groceries and he's the one to help her pick them up. And she tries to start a conversation with him and he's just not saying anything back. And obviously the first time I read this, you know, I was noticing things, but like obviously from my reread, I'm really noticing things. So when she first meets Archer, she mentions something about how, you know, it would really help me out here if you would speak, because she just keeps talking. And it mentions how his face just falls and like he like then drops his head and walks away. And like, you can already feel his pain. Like, this is a person that wants to communicate with him and he can't. And I just love this book. This book is gonna pull at me so hard. So I am up to page 55. So about at this point, not a whole lot has happened. Bree is in town. She's gotten her job at the diner. She's met Travis Hale, which is Archer's cousin. I also want to say too, I'm really excited to read this now that I've recently read Travis. I read Travis in April, and I honestly didn't want to because he's a character to me that does not deserve a redeeming arc. But Mia Sheridan wrote that book so well, and it was believable, and so I'm really looking at this story now from a different lens, different viewpoint, because Travis Hale is not the villain here. His mother is. And you're gonna get more of that story in Travis. I will say, spoiler alert, you do find out in Travis that Travis and Archer's father had always intended to come back and collect Travis after he had gotten Archer and his mother hidden away safely. But that was never known. Travis was always under the impression that his dad was just going to take Archer and Archer's mother and just go away. But you get more of the story in Travis's story about their dad was going to come back for him. And so it just really paints this family picture more, and just it really shows the evil person that Victoria Hale is. But like I said, I'm not very far into it. So Bree has met Travis Hale, and then she went back to Archer's house because she wanted to kind of check it out, and her dog like snuck through the gate. She had to go collect her dog, and then she tells Archer that she knows how to sign so they can speak to each other if they want. So that's really all I've gotten. Obviously, there is way more to come. I am so excited for this one. So excited. Now, I will say, the first time I read this book, there were things going on in my life that I think really added to this being such an in-depth 5-star read for me. The week that I read this was the week that we found out that my grandma was going to pass away in like a few days. And so I just had all of these emotions going. I had taken care of her full time at that time during COVID. Like, I was with her every day. And so to learn that I was going to lose her in like a few days while reading this book, I don't know, it gave me more. It made me cry more. So I'm very interested now to see how my reread will be. But like I said, 55 pages in, and I'm loving it. So I do have some adulting things that I need to do this morning. I need to do some dishes and some laundry. So I'm going to do my grown-up responsibilities, and then I'm just going to make myself cozy, and I would like to try to get this done today because this is a very good bingeable book, and I have the house to myself today. The kids are at camp, so you know what? I'm going to see if we can finish this, and then I will update you guys with some more thoughts. Okay, so it is currently Friday evening. It's just kind of been a little bit hectic. I did read a little bit more yesterday and yesterday evening. I just kind of needed to make my book club book pick priority right now because it is the end of the month and I'm only 20% through with that book, and I just need to get going on it. I've also been reading the Throne of Glass series. I am on Crown of Midnight right now, and I'm really enjoying it. So I've had other things to do, but I am on page 123 and I am really enjoying this. And I have to say, so what's different with this reread versus when I did Punk 57 is I did not annotate Punk 57 the first time I read it because I just wasn't into annotating at that time. This was like one of the first like 5 books I annotated. It's definitely up in one of the first ones I ever did. And I am amazed at how many things I did not tab in this book. So I decided I'm going to keep my original tabs. You can kind of see the old clear ones I used, just because I'd like to see the different times I annotate each time I read this. And it's just so interesting to see how little I tabbed. Like, in the first time I read this, I didn't tab this book until I was 100 pages in. Like, I didn't tab my first thing until 100 pages in. And with my reread, I've been tabbing within the first 20. So it's amazing to me to see how much just my annotating has changed in the last 2 years, because I read this in October of 2021. And yeah, it's fun. It's fun adding new annotations. This is the first time I've reread a book where I'm annotating it the second time, and it's just really, really fun. But updates within the book. So a little bit more has happened, definitely a lot more development between Archer and Bree. Bree is just so intrigued with Archer and wanting to get to know him, and she just comes by to see him, and he kind of lets her know that if the gate is open, you can come by. And pretty much every day she rides her bike by, the gate is open. And yes, this story is insta love, but it's just so much more than that. And really the first interaction, like, that really tugs at you, it's the first thing I tabbed in here, was when they have their little planned lunch date and she gets trapped in the net and gets like this PTSD like flashback attack or something, and he comes and rescues her. And it's the first night that she doesn't have a nightmare, because she's had so many nightmares every single night since this traumatic thing happened to her when she moved. And because she felt safe with him, she feels better. You also learn a little bit more about Archer's family and his past, and it's just so much more interesting to see it now that I've read this book already and Travis, and just how awful and tragic that whole story was. But I am gonna keep reading. I'm hoping to finish it tonight, but I love this story. There's just something about it. I'm on such a like heartfelt, breaking, like make you want to cry book kick right now. I recently finished No Tomorrow by Carrie and Cole, and that just absolutely like tore me up. And so I just knew this was perfect time to reread this. So I'm gonna keep reading this. Maybe I'll finish it tonight, maybe tomorrow morning. We'll see how the night goes. I also totally forgot to mention that I am about to start the chapter where she gives him a haircut, and that is one of my absolute favorite parts in this book. So I'm gonna see if it still holds up, but I'm pretty sure it will. So God, I just love this chapter. So haircut scene totally holds up. It's just funny because like it is a short chapter. I thought I remember it being longer, but it's really not. But it's just this like intense eye gazing that they give each other, and just how badly they want to kiss each other. And then it's funny at the end because like he kicks her out because he's so turned on and he doesn't know what to do. But there is this part that just, it kind of made me cry a little bit, because she mentions how, you know, obviously she's cutting his hair, so she's intimately, you know, moving his hair across his forehead and everything, and he just has this look of like hurt but love at the same time. And she just mentions how he probably hasn't been touched like this since his mother did. And that just, yeah. So I'm gonna keep reading. Shit's starting to get really heavy. It is Saturday evening, and I haven't really read a whole lot because I've just been reading Crown of Midnight and stuff like that, but I did sit back down to read some more of this, and a lot more drama is definitely starting to unfold. I just finished the chapter where Travis, you know, tries to be this good guy to Bree and take Archer out for a night out, but you know, we all know that Travis has other motives. And I have to say, the first time I read this chapter, it made me uncomfortable, and the second time I read this chapter, it made me uncomfortable and just pissed, because the entire time, like, you know Travis is up to no good. Even the first time you read it, you know he does not have good motives here. Like, Mia Sheridan keeps describing him as having these weird like smiles and smirks and everything, and it's just, it's so disgusting. And like it's this chapter right here that it just reminds me of how much of a horrible person Travis was. And it's just so amazing once you read his redemption arc, just how much of an influence his mother had on him and his hatred for Archer back then. And without it, he became a totally different person and viewed his brother in a different way. But that chapter, it's just, yeah. So obviously Travis takes Archer out for a night at a strip club, and he convinces him, you know, you really want to impress Bree. She's been with other guys. You need to get some experience under your belt. And so Travis pays off one of the strippers who Archer happened to have a crush on when he was a teenager to take Archer back to one of the private rooms and sleep with him. And the chapter is written in a way to make it look like this is what happens, and then Travis drops Archer off drunk at Bree's house and then leaves you there. Obviously you find out there was more to it than that, but it's such a gross chapter. Ugh. Yeah, it's like, you know, I go into this knowing Travis is going to become a better person and get his redemption arc, but it's just reading this stuff right here, it's hard, but still an amazing book, and for whatever reason, like, amazing to me. I am loving this even more the second time around. Okay, so I have roughly 100 pages left to go of this book. I'm about to the point where we're gonna hit the climax, where a big fight happens in the town, and then Archer leaves because he realizes that he's never going to grow as a person unless he leaves Pelion and learns things for himself. But everything else I've been reading, just, I love it. I do want to touch on Archer and Bree's first time. So I've mentioned here and there in a few videos that I'm not the biggest smut spice person. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not running out to like collect all the closed door books, like, no, trust me. But for me, smut spice, it has to be like influential, it has to move the plot forward, it has to mean something. And rereading this for the second time, I have to say Archer and Bree's first time with each other is probably up there in my top like first experiences between a couple ever. And you know, yes, you could add to the fact that it's because Archer's a virgin, and that's always like a more interesting take to me when the guy is a virgin and is learning these things. But for me, I think it's because it's mute. I've read several books where one of the characters is either mute or deaf, and when you're reading those intimate, spicy scenes, the author has to write it in a way that, you know, they can communicate with each other without words and, you know, saying dirty things to each other. And so Mia Sheridan just writes these scenes in a way of them just making this intense eye contact with each other. Bree mentioned something about the fact that they are making the same eye connection with each other that they did the first time they met. It's just obviously a deeper connection now. And I don't know, for me, it just means something more. Like, obviously, don't get me wrong, I love spicy, dirty books all day long. I love dark romance, but for me, a good spicy scene, my favorite intimate scenes are just the ones that give a more meaningful connection. But Bree and Archer are obviously happy in love at the point I'm at now, and like I said, we are about to the climax where things are going to take a turn, but obviously it needs to happen so change can happen. But, you know, Travis is just still, he's pissing me off, but I just have to remember that once he knows the truth, things are going to get better. So I'm going to take a pause, I'm going to eat some dinner, and then I would like to bust out the last 100 pages of this tonight. Hey, what's up? I finished Archer's Voice yesterday, and I just needed like 24 hours to just kind of sit and think about it before I gave my final thoughts. So I will start by saying, if you've read this, first of all, I hope you've read this because this entire vlog has been spoilers, and you want to reread this, I really highly suggest going and reading Travis before this, because like I said before, I didn't want to read Travis. I felt like he was a character that did not deserve a redemption arc, but I really loved his story. Like I said, you find out more about the Hale family in the past and what was really going on. And by the end of this book, when things are revealed and Travis figures out that his mom has been keeping this secret from him his whole life, he basically, along with the town, they kick her out and they say goodbye, which they rightfully should. She was a terrible, terrible person. Because of her, so many lives could have been different. You find out that she was the reason that Archer's parents were dead, because she clued in Archer's uncle that they were going to leave town and she wanted to stop them. You also find out in this book that it goes even further back, because Tori Hale has no redeeming qualities. Some could look at this book and argue that, you know, her husband cheated on her and it resulted in a child, but it goes back even further than that, because you find out from a friend of Archer's mother that Tori helped Archer's uncle drug his mother at a party, resulting in a pregnancy that was miscarried later on. They had to get married. Basically, Tori Hale helped Marcus Hale trap Archer's mother, and it was just this horrible, tragic life. Things could have turned out so differently. I also want to say, from this reread, I did cry even more than I did the first time, and I will say also, I definitely teared up more in the parts with Archer's past and that fateful day on the road when everything happens. I know that I teared up the first time I read it, but this second time, you just see how close they were to their happy ending. And obviously, you know from reading Travis that Connor Hale was going to go back and get Travis, and they were going to be this happy little family, and it's just so heartbreaking how close they were. I also could not remember from this book if Travis had known that Archer was his brother, because he refers to him as bro throughout this book. Whenever he sees him, he says, "Hey, bro." And I couldn't remember if Travis was aware of that, but obviously he's not. And also, I do want to say that when you are reading Travis, the entire book, he hates himself. He hates himself for the past, everything he did with Archer. Everything he does is he's trying to make it better. He's extremely close with Archer and Bree's kids. He loves his nephews like no other. And so just, I'm really trying to convince people to read that book, because you're going to get the full picture. But this was just an amazing, amazing 5-star reread. It gave me all of the emotions I wanted. I mean, I found myself crying at 3 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. I mean, yeah, I tabbed a lot. It was so much fun to add new annotations to my old annotations. My annotating has changed so much over the last several years. It's crazy. Like, I used to only tab my favorite scenes and then underline some things with a pencil. That used to be my tapping, was just favorite scenes and then little lines with a pencil. And now I do a lot more than that. So yeah, this was fun. It was great. Archer and Bree are, you know, that wholesome, loving couple that just, you can't get enough of them, and you root for them from the very beginning. But yeah, so I think that is gonna do it for this 5-star reread. Obviously, yes, it is still a 5-star read. So both of the vlogs I've done, Punk 57 and Archer's Voice, both of those books happen to be some of the first romance books I ever read. They are still 5-star reads for me. So we'll see how the next month goes. Keep this momentum going. I know there has to be some 5-star reads in there that are just not anymore. I know, but I don't know what I want to read next. I was thinking maybe Wall of Winnipeg, but I'm trying to push it out for September for football season, but I don't know. We'll decide eventually. But as always, don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.